Hello and good evening. Welcome to Season 1, Episode 3 of Scary Bazaar. As always, I am your hostess, Miss Spooky, and it is raining on this dreary of days, so if you're hearing any of that ambient noise, that's what that is. Sorry for if my postings have been a little bit sporadic as of late. We are going through some family issues with my grandmother. Her health is not it's deteriorating and things haven't been going so well. We went and visited her last week, but it's a pretty somber time for me and my family right now. However, that's not what this video is about. In this video, I am working on painting the birch trees in the background of my Banshee or Queen of Hearts painting that I've been putting together, and so far I think it looks fantastic. I love the way this technique, it's kind of more of an impressionist kind of thing, less illustrative, and it's more relying on building up the paint textures and stuff to create the image rather than, I guess, kind of drawing it and inking it out like the way I did in my previous video. So far I think it's beautiful. I love it. I plan on using the similar technique throughout that includes with the Banshee, and I can't wait for this piece to be done. I'm already in love with it. We are also going to be talking about in this episode some cheap art supplies and some cheap alternatives to art supplies. Starting with one of my very favorite things that I use all the time, egg cartons. Rather than going to the store and buying paint containers or paint palettes to mix my paints in and to store them in, which can run, the cheap end, $3 or $4, up to the more expensive ones that I think are made of acrylic or glass, and they come with lids on them, and they're like $20-25. I just use egg cartons, and then I don't even have to worry about cleaning them out. Once the paint in the bottom is dried and I'm done with it, I just throw them away, and they even come with their own lids. So what I'll do is whenever I'm done painting for the day, I will lightly spritz my paints with some water. I work with acrylics. In case anybody was wondering, I don't work in oils because they are too expensive and they dry too slowly for my taste. I'll spritz the paint that's in there, and then I'll get like a moist paper towel or something and kind of fold it up and lay it over top of the paints in the egg carton. Then I'll close the lid and store them in my fridge, and for a month and a half, I've had paints keep that way sometimes. I don't recommend doing it for super long term because they will still dry out. They just dry out much more slowly this way than, if you just leave them out. And again, egg cartons. You're getting the eggs and the carton. You spend, $1.50 on a dozen eggs. And it's way cheaper than going and buying those pallets, because even the low end, the $3 or $4 plastic pallet sets, I end up ruining in like a month and throwing away and having to buy whole new ones anyway. So egg cartons just cut out a big chunk of that. Another thing I've noticed, I've got to fit all this in 7 minutes here. Another thing that I've noticed is if you go to like the art supply store, they'll sell you like special jars for cleaning your brushes. And the way it's supposed to work is like the paint particles and stuff kind of settle into one chamber of the jar, and then the cleaner water is supposed to kind of rise up to the top, and it kind of keeps your clean and dirty water separate a little bit. You can achieve this by using a soda bottle. What you do is you cut your soda bottle in half, and then you turn the top half that you would drink upside down, so that the part that you drink out of is resting in the bottom of the bottle, and then you can tape around the edges of it just to kind of hold it all together if you want to, but then you just fill that with water and you use that to clean your brushes. And what it does is when you're rinsing your brush out at the bottom of the bottle contraption, all of the paint particles and stuff kind of stay in the bottom and disperse along the sides area, but then the center part of the water still stays a whole lot cleaner. And again, that's just another cheap thing. You can also use these as a cheap fly catchers. They're pretty common on farms, but instead of filling the whole thing with water, just the bottom, just a little bit of the bottom, just a little bit of water, because then when the flies fly down into it to get to the water, they can't find their way back out, and you can kill flies that way too. So yeah, dual purpose on that one. Another thing you can do is, or like a reason I use the acrylic paints is because they're a lot cheaper, and you have a lot more options with mixing them with certain mediums and things that you don't get with the oil paints and stuff. For example, you could go to your art supply store and shell out a whole bunch of money for, you know, name brand acrylic mixings, or you can experiment around a little bit. Like acrylic paints, they mix with water, glue, KY jellies, hair gels, eggs. These are just some things I'm thinking of off the top of my head that are pretty inexpensive. A lot of things most people already have in their homes. And again, you just kind of experiment with them, and they're a whole lot cheaper than going out and buying tubes of acrylic medium or such as that. Another example is if you work a lot in like charcoals or graphite, or even the chalk pastels. You go to an art supply store to buy a can of the fixative. That stuff's like $15-20, but you go to the Dollar General, buy a $1 can of hairspray. It is the exact same stuff. It works the exact same way. So much cheaper. Let's see what else. I'm running out of time here. Oh, just a quick one. On my acrylic paints, I do use the craft paints, the cheap 50-cent craft paints, but only as underpaintings because they come in such a huge variety of colors for so cheap. I will use that as like an underpainting on my painting to try to figure out my paint palette, and then I'll use my thicker paints, my more expensive paints, which I own less of because I actually mix my colors with those, and then it kind of helps me get a more accurate mixing of those colors using the cheap acrylic paints as an underpainting, which I own one of every single color. Like they're 50 cents a piece. You get one of every single tube at Hobby Lobby. It's less than $50, or it was for me when I did it. That's about all the time I have here. I hope you guys liked this video. Like, comment, subscribe. I will see you later. Stay spooky. Bye. Hello, and good evening. Welcome to Season 1, Episode 3 of Scary Bazaar. As always,